Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum class. I welcome you all to another lecture of neurological physical therapy. I am your course instructor Dr. Ghulam Fatma for the subject of neurological physical therapy. As you all know that previously we were discussing about the various interventions or various tools that can be used in the rehabilitation programs of neurophysiological patients. So, as a part of that, we'll be discussing the different impairment interventions that can be used in your rehabilitation plan wherever required and according to the patient condition. Like the interventions we'll be discussing, these are the tools. You have all these tools available, and you will use the tool you need according to your patient, and you can use any of these tools fitting your situation and your patient's condition. So, what are the topics for discussion? The topic for discussion is obviously what are different interventions for impairment. So, we'll be discussing the interventions that are used to improve the strength, power, and endurance. After that, we'll discuss about specific precautions or specific what kind of say protocols to be monitored during muscular endurance and fatigue situations, and aerobic training. We'll be discussing interventions to improve flexibility. We will be discussing stretching and positioning for the spastic muscles, and then we'll be discussing that how you can manage the patient who has the tone reduction problem, that is hypotonia, and finally we'll be discussing about the relaxation training. So these are all the tools that will be used judiciously according to the situation and according to the requirement of the patient. And you are the therapist, and this is your clinical reasoning, and this is your clinical decision making, that which tool or which intervention you want to use according to the patient condition. So, after discussing all these interventions, by the end of this lecture, hopefully, you people will be able to understand what are the needs and the types of interventions those are available for the impairment. Like, first of all, you will know that which impairments can be used. Then you will be able to understand the indications and protocols of different impairment interventions. And finally, what is the need to implement specific interventions in neurological physical therapy patients. So these are the learning outcomes for today's lecture. So we'll start with the impairment, first the basic introduction of impairment intervention. Simply, I have also discussed in previous lectures that our first tool and our first priority is always functional training, because functional training has many added benefits, it not only train the patient in a functional pattern, in synergic pattern, but also it can like improve the strength, and it can also improve the endurance of the patient in a very functional manner, and increase the confidence of the patient. And there are very added benefits of the functional training. But on the other hand, sometimes patient has some specific intervention impairments, and if you start the functional training without treating those impairments, then it can be counterproductive. ठीक है जी, पेशेंट जो है जिसके से आपके हिप फ्लेक्सस टाइट है या से आपके नी फ्लेक्सस टाइट हैं, आप अगर उसकी वॉक ट्रेनिंग स्टार्ट करा देते हो और उसके जो मसल्स आपके शॉर्टन हैं, आपके नी फ्लेक्सस या हिप फ्लेक्सस, आप उनकी स्ट्रेचिंग नहीं करवाते, तो क्या होगा कि पेशेंट एक जो है जो है गलत पैटर्न जो है वो वेट का उसका जो है सेट हो जाएगा। ठीक है, तो आपने दोनों चीजों को साथ साथ लेके चले. If the patient is having impairment, then you will try to use the impairment specific intervention along with the functional training. So it should always be linked to the functional training. So this is very necessary to or or on the other hand, another example can be if the patient you are like training a patient with any activity overhead reaching activity, but the patient's muscles, shoulder muscles or say scapular stabilizer muscles are not properly working, then patient will again start using substitute muscles, because our brain has the ability to substitute the muscles, and the other muscles which have the sufficient power will or strength will try to perform that activity. So patient can develop a faulty movement pattern. So that's the need, and that it is very necessary to train the patient and to correct the impairment. Otherwise, functional training will be counterproductive. It will delay the recovery as the patient will be like learning the incorrect patterns. So it is very necessary to, moreover, in the stages where the patient do not have strength or power to perform a function, like if the patient doesn't have the enough strength to walk or to stand even, then obviously you have to again rely on the impairment interventions. So there are many full benefits of impairment interventions, and wherever possible, you should always link your impairment intervention with the functional training, because both of these are extremely necessary and they should go hand by hand. So coming towards and starting the discussion of the intervention, first of all, we are going to discuss the interventions that are required to improve strength, power, and endurance. You are very well aware of these interventions. You have studied these interventions in your therapeutic exercises in a very much greater detail. So here again, in the neurological patients, there is a need to perform the strength training, especially if the patient for those patients who have impaired motor function, or and the patients obviously then have the deficits in the muscle activation and muscle is not performing fully. There is deficiency in muscle performance. So in that case, you will need to perform the strength training. So the sequence of training is a bit crucial here, and it is a bit different, you can say, for the neurological patient. In neurological patient, you will always start with the isometric exercises and eccentric contractions. You will start with the isometric and eccentric, and then you will go towards the eccentric, concentric training of the muscles. So why we are preferring isometric holds and why we are preferring eccentric contraction? Because these two types, they are able to better maintain muscle tension. Muscle tension is better maintained in both of these, in isometric and eccentric contraction. So that's why whenever you are training, like you are performing a strength training for a logical patient, first of all, in the start, you will try to make the patient hold the position in the mid range. Okay, like say you are training the elbow flexor or elbow extensor. So first of all, you will just try make the patient hold this position in the mid range. And because mid range, as you have already studied, that in the mid range the muscles are most efficient due to their angle of pull. So in the mid range, you will only make the patient hold this position. This is part of isometric contraction. Then you will ask the patient to slowly lower the limb. This lowering is an eccentric training of the muscle. And then again, you can, like in the lengthened position, you can again ask for the hold and isometric contraction in this lengthened range. And once the patient has gained control of both of these isometric hold and eccentric movements, when the patient has gained hold of this one, then finally you will move towards the concentric contractions. The concentric contractions, most of the time, as you all know, that if the patient is having like spasticity or that the muscles are already shortened, so there is another, this is an added benefit that will go towards the concentric contraction in the last phase. First, we'll focus on the isometric holds and we'll focus on the eccentric training. So finally, we'll go towards the concentric contractions. दोबारा बता रही हूँ, न्यूरो के पेशेंट्स में स्ट्रेंथ ट्रेनिंग का जो सीक्वेंस है वो ये है, सबसे पहले आइसोमेट्रिक होल्ड प्रेफरेबली इन द मिड रेंज, उसके बाद से हम बाइसेप पे ट्रेन करेंगे, उसके बाद जो इसेंट्रिक जो है वो आपकी मूवमेंट, आफ्टर दैट फाइनली यू विल गो टुवर्ड्स द concentric movement. Okay, then the next thing which is important to consider is velocity. As you have already studied that effect of, if you remember from your kinesiology concepts, that the speed do affect the contraction and the force production and the tension generation. So, especially during concentric contraction, whenever the speed is increased, the and velocity is increased, total tension is decreased. आप जो है आप खुद देख लें कि अगर आप बाजू जो है आहिस्ता 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 जो है अगर ऊपर उठाते हैं, तो आपको ज्यादा थोड़ा सा इसमें टेंशन जनरेशन करनी पड़ती है, और दूसरी तरफ अगर आप जल्दी जल्दी उठाते हैं तो वो थोड़ा सा इजी हो जाता है. सो एक्चुअली ड्यूरिंग concentric contraction, velocity, when velocity is increased, total tension is decreased. So that's why whenever you are performing concentric contraction, you should start with the slow speed because you need to develop the control. And once the control is developed, then you can move towards the fast speed because at that moment the control is developed. So after developing the control, then you can move towards the fast speed. So another method that can be used to increase the strength and endurance, that is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. These are PNF techniques. They are also used to increase the strength and endurance. We'll be discussing the PNF techniques in separate lecture in full detail, inshallah. Now, what are the other exercise guidelines that are required for the patient strength training? First of all, what should be the mode of exercise? You can use open chain exercise. As you know, in open chain exercise, the distal end of the extremity is like free to move. So in that, you have a added benefit that you can isolate the movement to one segment. Like you can like perform the movement only shoulder, only elbow, only wrist. So you can isolate segment. On the other hand, we have closed chain exercise, and in closed chain exercise, you know that the distal extremity is fixed. So when distal extremity is fixed, most of the time these exercises are weight bearing exercises, and they have added benefit that weight bearing also stimulate the muscles, and also like the muscles are recruited and your proprioceptors are recruited, and there are many other benefits of only weight bearing itself. So you can use open chain exercises, and you can also use closed chain exercises. And in the next stages, in the advanced stages, you can also use circuit training. As you may remember, that circuit training is a combination of various methods, and where a patient perform one type of exercise and the next type of exercise, and again another type of exercise, and there is a combination of different types of exercise. So the circuit training can also be used. Aquatic exercises that can also be used if the patient has sufficient strength to withhold the aquatic resistance. Then you can use the synergic patterns. Synergic patterns are simply the normal functional pattern, you can say. And in that, once again, we are discussing about the PNF patterns. We can add manual resistance in PNF pattern. PNF patterns are actually based on your functional patterns. That's why those are also linked with your synergic patterns. So those are more efficient to improve your functional function, because the patterns are already functional and the muscles are linked in a very natural way, and muscle will be linked as they will be naturally linked with each other. So that's why they have the added benefit if you use PNF patterns or you use synergic patterns. And moreover, there is a specificity principle. I hope you remember once again from the therapeutic knowledge that specificity principle says that only the muscles, those muscles which are trained for a particular activity, muscles will be trained for only that particular activity. Like अगर आप किसी को रनिंग की ट्रेनिंग करवा रहे हैं तो उसकी रनिंग ही इम्प्रूव होगी, इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि अब उसकी स्विमिंग भी इम्प्रूव होगी. So this is a specificity principle. आप जिन मसल्स को जिन एक्टिविटीज में ट्रेन करेंगे वो मसल्स उन्हीं एक्टिविटीज में ट्रेन होंगे. बाकी जो है बाकी मसल्स या बाकी एक्टिविटीज में ऑटोमेटिकली जो है वो ट्रेन नहीं हो जाएंगे. This is called specificity principle. So what should be the intensity? Intensity in neurological patients should always be submaximal loads, and they shouldn't be maximal, because most of the time the patient has strength deficit, so you will use submaximal loads. So if you are if the patient has sufficient strength and the grade is above 3, so then you can train the patient with weights, and then the load is 60% to 80% of one repetition maximum. So I hope you people remember what is one repetition maximum from your kinesiology knowledge, and if you don't remember, then I'll request you that open your kinesiology book and revise your concepts of one repetition maximum and 10 repetition maximum. With weight, 60 to 80% of one repetition maximum is used. And if the patient muscles are very weak and they are they are unable to hold that much of weight, then you can also start with the 50% of one repetition maximum. And the repetitions can also be reduced to less than 10. Usually at set of 10 repetitions is used, 10 to 15 repetitions is used. But if the patient is very weak, then we can reduce the repetitions even less than 10. And 50% of 10 repetitions, I can just give you an idea that if a patient can lift a 10 kg weight maximally, then you will start the training with 5 kg. This is 50% of one repetition maximum. Okay, then how many number of repetition and sets? As I have already discussed, that usually we have a set of 10 to 15 repetitions. So we can use 3 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions, or they can be adjusted on according to the patient tolerance. This is not a hard and fast rule that you will always use this amount, but most of the time we use 10 to 15 repetitions and 3 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions. And the duration is mostly for strength training. The duration for strength training is mostly 15 to 30 minutes per session. Again, it depends on the patient tolerance. If the patient starts to fatigue, then you can reduce this duration and you can reduce the repetitions. Frequency strength training, as you all as you from your previous knowledge, I hope you remember that in strength training we give the muscles the time to undergo or repair from that wear and tear process that results from your strength training process. That's why they are used most of the time. We perform that on alternative days or even less than that. So typically 2 to 3 days per week or alternative days, you can say, we can perform the strength training because the muscles need time to repair from the wear and tear. Again, warm up and cool down periods are very necessary. So 5 to 10 minutes of warm up and 5 to 10 minutes of cool down period should be included in your strength training session. Okay, after strength training, we are coming towards the endurance. So as you remember, we have already discussed there are certain CNS condition, or rather many of the CNS condition where the patient has very what you can interactive type और बहुत ही ज़्यादा जो है उनको जो है bother करने वाली fatigue जो है वो patient experience करते हैं. So the condition in which the patients usually experience such fatigue, there can be multiple sclerosis, there can be Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS, which is called as an abbreviation, chronic fatigue syndrome, and post-polio syndrome. These are the conditions where the patient experience a very debilitating kind of a fatigue. So in that, you need to be very conscious, and we have already discussed about the overexertion and overexertion injury. The patient is unable to recover from the injury, and the patient, it will become very difficult for the patient to even perform the normal ADLs after after a very aggressive kind of training session. So these patients need to be monitored carefully, and the exercise plans should be progressed very slowly. So these are the precautions that should be taken into consideration. So for endurance training, we can go for aerobic training, obviously. So in aerobic training, we'll be using once again moderate intensity, and most of the time they will be 40% to 70% of VO2 maximum or the maximal oxygen consumption. So that will be utilized here. And as you all know that endurance training, high intensities are contraindicated. Moreover, the neurological patients have the problem of fatigue. That's why high intensities are contraindicated. You will only use moderate intensities, and even according to the patient's strength, they can be low according to the patient if the patient is unable to bear even moderate intensity. Then the frequency, as you know, that endurance training, frequency of endurance training is always more repetitions and less, you know, that intensity. So these are frequency is 3 to 5 days per week, and the time is usually 20 to 30 minutes session. Or if the patient is having the problem of fatigue, as we have just discussed, then you can use multiple 10-minute sessions, like a 10-minute of activity, then a break, then a 10-minute of activity, then a break. And if you remember it, we call it as a distributed practice. So such patients who are facing the very fatigue, or they have the problem of fatigue, then you can use for them distributed practice, and discontinuous protocol can be used, and sometimes even the rest period should be greater than the practice period. So you need to monitor the patient condition and the development of fatigue. Now, what are the other techniques that can be used for the patients who have very low endurance and fatigue? How can we improve the functional capacity of such patients? So there are certain, you should say, certain techniques or certain protocols that can be guided to the patient. First of all, the thing is energy conservation techniques. Energy conservation techniques जो है सिंपल छोटी छोटी चीजें हैं जिससे आपने अपनी एनर्जी कंजर्व करनी है, लाइक जो काम बैठ के हो सकता है उसको आप खड़े होकर मत करें। अगर आप एक्सीलेटर यूज कर सकते हैं तो फिर आप सीढ़ियां मत चढ़े, ठीक है। तो ऐसे छोटे छोटे काम जो है, किसी चीज के लिए मशीन यूज हो सकती है तो उसके लिए आप खुद जो है वो जहमत ना करें। सो ऑल दीज आर काइंड ऑफ एनर्जी कंजर्वेशन टेक्निक्स। देन वी हैव एक्टिविटी पेसिंग, तेज तेज मत चलें, स्पीड स्लो कर लें, ठीक है। सो दीज आर ऑल एक्चुअली यूज टू अवॉइड द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ फटीग. Then there are lifestyle changes. Obviously, if the patient is facing the activity and the patient is using energy conservation techniques, that overall lifestyle changes will be there. और patient को जो है वो अपने जो काम है उसको थोड़ा सा बीच में रेस्ट पीरियड देने पड़ेंगे, अपने काम करने के जो क्या नाम चाहिए शेड्यूल है उसको थोड़ा सा इस तरह से रखना पड़ेगा कि फटीग का एलिमेंट जो इसमें रखना है तो उसको जो है इस तरह से शेड्यूल करना है कि रेगुलर रेस्ट periods जो है वो during the day. So these are the lifestyle changes which are required. And the next thing is that in the case if the patient is having low endurance and more fatigue, it means the body needs more time for what you can say recovery from an activity. So sound sleep is very necessary. So for that you can guide the patient with the relaxation technique, and certain medications can help the patient too. And if you guide the patient any activity, then the level of the activity on the rating of perceived exertion, we have discussed that scale in our previous lectures. The level of that activity and rating of perceived exertion should be somewhat hard, and that is 14 or even lower than that on that rating of perceived exertion scale. The total score of the scale was 6 to 20. So the patient should rate the activity as somewhat hard if you are trying to make the patient perform certain activities. It shouldn't be more than that in any case. So next we have interventions to improve flexibility. As you all know that many times the patient has muscle shortening that can be a result of like if the limb is held in a shortened position for a very long time, or there can be loss of flexibility. So simply when the patient is in the initial stages, and even simple arm exercises will help to improve the flexibility. ठीक है जी, ऐसे पेशेंट जो है जो खुद को ही एक्टिविटी नहीं कर सकता, ठीक है, मसल पैरालाइज है, बाजू पड़ा हुआ है, तो उसकी फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी को मेंटेन रखने के लिए सिंपल आरओएम एक्सरसाइजेस भी जो है उसकी फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी एटलीस्ट जो है वो मेंटेन करेंगे और उसको इम्प्रूव करेंगे. Then if the muscles have developed shortening, then you can go for the passive stretching, and you can utilize joint mobilization techniques. All of them can help you. Then you can use heat. अच्छा जी, अगर आपको याद हो तो स्ट्रेचिंग का जो हमेशा एक प्रोटोकॉल था दैट बिफोर स्ट्रेचिंग यू विल ऑलवेज अप्लाई हीट मोडालिटी, बिकॉज हीट मोडालिटी इंक्रीज द मसल टेम्परेचर एंड इंक्रीज द इलास्टिसिटी एंड इंक्रीज द एक्सटेंसिबिलिटी ऑफ द मसल. बट you need to check the patient's sensation first. If there are sensory deficits, then you shouldn't apply any hot or cold modality. If there is no sensation deficit, then you can use heat modality, and it will help to increase the flexibility and the extensibility of the muscle. Now, then, if the patient has sensory deficit, then a better way to warm up or warm them or increase the muscle temperature is to perform some kind of exercise, warm up exercise is a better way to than heating modalities, because not only it warms the muscle but it has many other added benefits. Then in the last, after stretching, usually we apply cold modalities, because cold modalities, they cool down the muscle, and they decrease the muscle stress or and they reduce the physiological sprinting. आपने देखा होगा sometimes stretching के बाद muscle soreness हो जाती है, तो अगर आप एंड पे उसे cold modality दे देते हैं तो फिर उससे muscle soreness वगैरह नहीं होती, क्योंकि muscle spasm और physiological sprinting जो है उसके chances जो है उससे reduce हो सकते हैं. ठीक है. So all these can be utilized to improve the flexibility, ranging from the arm exercises, passive stretching, joint mobilization, heat modalities in the start, or if a patient cannot be, so better option than heat modalities is warm up exercises, and then finally core modalities can be used to reduce the muscle spasms and muscle sprinting. Okay, this is an example how ROM exercises can be performed, and obviously you know that there are ROM exercises. There can be passive range of motion, there can be active range of motion, there can be active assisted range of motion. So if the patient is totally paralyzed and the patient is unable to perform the activity himself, only then you should perform passive range of motion exercises, because passive range of motion is only adapted when active is not possible, because the passive range of motion will not like end up in any increase in muscle strength or any increase in circulation. And so that's why passive range of exercises, they do have the benefit that they will maintain the flexibility of the muscles. So it is very necessary कि आप अगर पेशेंट नहीं कर सकता एक्टिव, फिर आप पैसिव या एक्टिव असिस्टेड एटलीस्ट उसको जरूर करें. एक्टिव असिस्टेड भी नहीं कर सकता तो पैसिव एटलीस्ट करवाएं जरूर, because it will maintain the flexibility and viability of the muscles. But whenever possible, you should opt for the active or active assisted exercises. So, on the other hand, active or active assisted exercise have many added benefits, like they will improve the circulation to that area, and obviously it will lead to the increased muscle strength, because when the muscle is actively working, it is generating tension. It will not only improve the motor function of the muscle, but it will also reduce the chances of atrophy, and it will increase the muscle strength at whatever level the muscle is. Even it is in even in grade 2, if you are performing like movements in gravity free positions, or even it is not at the full range, even then the active assisted range of motion can help out the patient, and it will increase, along with the maintaining of flexibility, it will also increase the strength, and also increase the circulation in that area. So next was the passive stretching. So passive stretching, we have many types of stretching. You may have already like go through all of these. So first of all, we have the most famous. We have static stretching, where we hold the limb in the lengthened position for 20 to 30 minutes, and 20 to 30 seconds, and that is repeated for 4 to 5 times, and even less sometimes depending on the patient's tolerance. So most of the time we'll prefer that फोर्स जो आप लगा रहे हैं वो कम हो, which is then called low load stretching, और जो है टाइम जो है वो आपका 4 to 5 minutes तक चला जाए. So low load stretching, it has added benefit that there will be less soft tissue tearing, there will be less afterwards muscle soreness will be reduced, and obviously energy requirements are also reduced there. So a low load stretching is a kind of सेफ स्ट्रेचिंग, बिकॉज जो है इसमें वियर एंड टीयर मसल की बहुत कम होती है एज कम्पेयर टू अदर काइंड्स ऑफ स्ट्रेचिंग. सो whenever you perform stretching, it should always be combined with the active exercises, because the range gained with stretching, the flexibility gained with stretching, that needs to be maintained with active exercises. So वो जो rule होता है कि use it or lose it. If the patient is not using the range, or the range gained, if you have done the stretching and gained some range, the patient is not using that range, that it will be lost again. So it should always be combined with active exercises. So next we have ballistic stretching. As you all must be well aware that ballistic stretching is a quick and high force stretching that is mostly observed in the athletes, but it is contraindicated in elderly and weak, and the patients, especially neurological patients, do have muscle weakness and they are not that much energetic. So ballistic stretching is overall contraindicated for such patients. Then we have another kind of stretching that is called low load prolonged stretch. The Stretch is again low load, but the stretch is applied for a prolonged period of time, and usually for 15 to 30 minutes can be there. Obviously इतनी लंबी स्ट्रेच जो है वो थेरेपिस्ट जो है वो नहीं अप्लाई कर सकता, बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है. So we need some external help. So most of the time to apply this low load for a long stretch, we will use some kind of pulley or weight, or some kind of orthotic devices can even be used to maintain such kind of stretch. जैसे कि किसी के elbow flexors हैं तो हम उसे लेंथ एंड पोजीशन में से इस पोजीशन में रख के उसके हाथ में वेट दे देते हैं, ठीक है. तो उस वेट की वजह से जब ग्रेविटी पुल करेगी तो ऑटोमेटिकली स्ट्रेच आएगी elbow flexors पे. So that is low load for a long stretch, and patient can hold that. And even that can be positional stretch. Most of the time we use positional stretch or body weight stretch that can be used for low load for long stretch. Then there is an option of serial cast. You must have gone through about the serial cast. We'll be discussing that in detail in upcoming slides again. Then we have the option of facilitated stretching. I hope you have like read about this in your therapeutic, that there is hold relax, there is contract relax, and as you remember, the mechanism is that patient will also put the force, and the patient will also perform the activity of the muscle, and that is the basic concept in hold relax. And we will use either the concept of reciprocal relaxation or reciprocal inhibition will be the concept, that concept is applied here. So hold relax and contract relaxed are the techniques that can be used for facilitated stretching, but obviously these are not possible if the muscles are very weak or paralyzed, and if the patient is unable to produce any amount of tension, or is unable to contract the muscles actively, then we cannot apply facilitated stretching. These are a part of PNF stretching. You must have studied about them in your therapeutics, hold relax and contract relax. And this is also not possible in chronic contractions. There we need some kind of serial cast, or those will be more effective. So now we are going to discuss about the stretching and positioning that can be used for the patient with spasticity. There are two important concepts. One is the patient, we need stretching, and then the second thing is we need a proper positioning for the patient. So there are many positions which are sometimes called reflexive positions that are used in case of spastic patients with spasticity. So another thing that is very important here is that whenever you are handling the patient, spastic patient, you should never place your full hand on the spastic muscle, because the muscle is already having too much of impulses, and it is already unable to relax, and your hand will be providing more sensory stimulus. So you shouldn't place your full hand on the spastic muscle. You should always handle such limb from the bony prominences. You will hold handle from the bony prominences, and or you can place your hand if sometimes like one group of muscles is spastic and the other is normal, so you can place your hand on the non-spastic areas. But if both group of muscles are affected, then only use or handle from the bony prominences here, like from elbow over here for the sides of the wrist. You will only make contact from the bony prominences, and never put and avoid your direct pressure on your spastic muscles. It will increase the spasticity. So what kind of positions can be used? Like how can you move the patient? Like the patient has this, say patient is having this posture. In this posture you will grasp, you can grasp for the thumb, and you will move the limb out, and then you can grasp for the your wrist, and you will slowly and gradually move the shortened spastic out of this position into the lengthened range using the slow repetitive rotation. If you remember, हमने पढ़ा था कि स्पीड ज्यादा हो तो स्पास्टिसिटी बढ़ जाती है, स्पीड कम कर दें तो स्पास्टिक रिस्पॉन्स भी कम हो जाता है. तो उसे लेंथन रेंज में ले आए, और फिर लेंथन रेंज में आप उसको पोजीशन करते हैं. ठीक है. अपर लिम्ब के लिए जो एक पोजीशन यूज होती है, ये होती है कि पेशेंट लेटा हुआ है तो अपने सर के नीचे हाथ रख के लेट जाए. तो इससे जो है शोल्डर जो फ्लेक्शन में था उसकी भी आप काउंटर कर दोगे, और आपके फिंगर्स जो हैं और आपके रिस्ट जो है वो भी फ्लेक्शन से निकल के एक्सटेंशन में आ जाएंगे। तो ये हम लेंथन पोजीशन में ऐसे उसका जो है प्लेस कर सकते हैं। कंसीडर करें पेशेंट लेटा हुआ है, ठीक है, तो जब इस तरह से हाथ रखेंगे तो ऑटोमेटिकली उसके हेड के वेट से जो है वो उसकी फिंगर्स और उसकी जो रिस्ट है वो सीधी रहेगी, ठीक है। तो दिस कैन बी यूज्ड. Then that position should be maintained, and newly gained position should be newly gained rate should be used to provide for long stretching. And usually the patient can like maintain the position, the lengthened position for 10 minutes. Most of the time it is fatiguing for the patient, so we limit this to 10 minutes. Then the other thing we discussed that is you can use this serial cast in case of chronic contractures. Obviously, you can use the serial cast. You must have already gone through this in prosthetic or setting what is the procedure of using a serial cast. But again, for your revision, I'm telling you that obviously they will reduce the contracture, and if there is a reduction in the contracture, there will be improvement in the range of motion, and deformity will be reduced. So to make a serial cast, first the limb is usually, like say if the patient is having elbow contraction, we will be placing the limb in fully lengthened end range possible for the patient. Then a layer of thin foam will be applied, then white cotton wrap is applied over that, and in the last we apply the cast material. And the benefit of that is that it can apply a prolonged stretch that can lead up to few days, like 7 to 10 days. We usually change this after 7 to 10 days. After 7 to 10 days, we'll remove the cast, and the patient will be, and we'll move the limb in the next lengthened position, and then we will again apply the cast. Then after again 7 to 10 days, we'll again like remove the cast, and more उससे ज्यादा लेंथ एंड उससे ज्यादा स्ट्रेच पोजीशन में लिंक को ले जाके फिर कास्ट लगा देंगे, ठीक है। So it is used for usually 1 to 6 weeks is the duration that can be used. So this is an option that can be opted for the patient neurologically if they are having contractures. A more adjustable and a more convenient option as compared to the serial cast is to use adjustable orthosis. As you can see, that these are these kind of orthoses. They provide you with passive prolonged stretch, and the benefit is that they are more hygienic, and they can be removed, and there can be skin observation. There are very less chances of skin ulceration or any like vascular like sometimes in serial cast there is like if it is not applied properly, there can be reduction in blood supply to that area, but this is not the case when we are using such adjustable orthosis. So adjustable orthosis can be used providing you with stretch, a long stretch, and they are more hygienic too. Then the range of motion for the patients with hypotonia. Obviously, the patient is hypotonic, so the the possibility for in that state when the muscles are flaccid, we only have the option to perform passive range of motion exercises. So when we are performing passive range of motion exercises, remember when the patient is having hypotonia, patient is in a flaccid state, the all the muscles, the stabilizers of the joint will also be in the hypotonic state, and there will be also be flyer. So the joints do not have the stability which is normally provided by the muscles. It do have the inert stability which is provided by the ligaments and other extra-articular structure, but it is not having the stability which is provided by the active muscular contraction. So there are many much chances that if you are performing range of motion, you will take the limb beyond the range because the joint is unstable, and the patient can have hyperextension injury. And that is a reason, ये बहुत बड़ा reason है कि जब आपके शुरू के stages में the patient फ्लैक्सिड स्टेट में होता है, हम लोग पैसिव रेंज ऑफ मोशन कराते हुए बियॉन्ड रेंज मूवमेंट जो है करवाते रहते हैं, उसमें इंजरी हो जाती है और पेशेंट जो है उसके शोल्डर पेन जो है उसकी कंप्लेन हो जाती है, या समटाइम्स शोल्डर डिसलोकेशन भी हो जाती है इन द वर्स्ट केसेस। स्पेशली अगर घर वाले कोई करवा रहे हैं, उनको इस प्रिकॉशन का नहीं बताया गया कि विद इन लिमिट ही रहना है, ये नहीं करना कि जहां तक शोल्डर जा रहा है उसको ले जाए। नो, you have to stay within the limits because the joints are unstable, there are chances of hyperextension injury. So this is a major precaution. Okay, then as there are chances of joint instability, there is chances of joint dislocation. So sometimes we need to provide the patient with supportive and protective devices so that it may prevent any injury to the limb, and especially if the patient is going through some kind of functional training, if the patient is sitting in the position where the gravity is affecting the muscles, the patient may need to support that limb and may need supportive and protective devices to protect the limbs till the time there is some like tone return back to normal. Now, finally, we are going to discuss about the relaxation training. Now, relaxation training, why it is necessary that the patient should go to the relaxation training, because because of many reasons the neurological patients are under stress. सबसे पहले तो जो उनका neurological event हुआ है वो ही एक बहुत बड़ा reason है stress का. And moreover, sometimes the sympathetic nervous system is very much active and the sympathetic responses are heightened, and that's a reason that the patient is under stress. So the patient needs to reduce the stress and patient needs some relaxation therapy too. And whenever we relaxation therapy की जब भी बात आती है, आपको पता है जब आप sympathetic system active होता है तो आप stress और active हो, आप anxious होते हो. जब आपका parasympathetic होता है तो आप relax होते हो, ठीक है. और आप जो है उसमें आपकी स्ट्रेस जो है स्ट्रेस लेवल्स रिड्यूस होते हैं. So what are the positive benefits of relaxation training? First of all, if the muscles are these are more beneficial in cases like if the patient is having a motor neuron injury patient and the muscles are spastic, then they will induce muscle relaxation so that the muscles are shortened and there is spasticity, so there will be relaxation and it will reduce muscle relaxation. Moreover, as a reduction in the sympathetic system activity, there will be reduction in the blood pressure. Blood pressure will be lowered, and the patients with who have shortened muscles or who have spastic muscles, they also complain of ischemic pain. The ischemic pain is caused by the shortened muscle. When the muscles are shortened and they are not having their normal activity, then the blood supply to that area is also reduced. So when you will induce relaxation and the muscles will relax, so it will also reduce the ischemic pain. Then overall patient's emotional state will be improved, his cognitive function will be improved, his memory will be improved, his overall condition, mental condition will be improved in the case of executive functions. So a patient will have high energy levels and obviously the patient will feel a sense of control after this relaxation. ये वो सारे बेनिफिट्स हैं जो एक नॉर्मल इंसान भी रिलैक्सेशन ट्रेनिंग या मेडिटेशन से हम कहते हैं कि ले सकते हैं. तो सेम इज द केस विद द न्यूरोलॉजिकल पेशेंट्स. So what are the two main elements that can be used? First of all, जो सबसे ज्यादा मेडिटेशन में डायफ्रैग्मेटिक या रिलैक्सेशन ट्रेनिंग आप जो हमारी होती है वो इसमें हो गई. You people have already discussed relaxation in kinesiology. So first thing is that you will train the patient for the quiet deep breathing and attention, focus on a single thing. So that should be something nice and something positive. So simply in which is called controlled breathing, which is also called diaphragmatic breathing, which is also called belly breathing. In this, the patient inhales slowly, usually from the nose, and then holds the breath for a few seconds, and then slowly exhales. Most of the time we do like exercise it or practice it in a very comfortable position with the eyes closed and in low light. You have already studied all the protocols of relaxation training. Then sometimes for the patient we can give 4 to 5 minute session throughout the day, or whenever patient feels stressed we can use this breathing techniques. So these breathing techniques will help to relax the patient. Then we can use another technique which is incorporated, which can be incorporated along with this breathing technique, is imagery. Like imagining a good thing, like आप imagine करें आप किसी खूबसूरत सी जगह पे हैं, वहाँ पे पानी बह रहा है, वहाँ पे ठंडी हवा चल रही है और वहाँ पे कोई खूबसूरत से फूल है. तो imagery technique, imagery, imagination से आप क्या नहीं कर सकते. Imagination से आप कोई लड़ाई वाली सिचुएशन सोच के खुद को स्ट्रेस में डाल ले, कोई अच्छी सिचुएशन सोच के आप खुद को रिलैक्स कर सकते हैं. तो इमेजिनेशन is an immense power, immense power. So we will use that imagination for the patient to promote relaxation. Then there is a technique which was described by the Jacobson, and this is called progressive relaxation technique. It is only used if the patient is not already having much of muscle tension, and or on the other hand, that much of weakness that he is unable to produce muscle tension. Both of these extreme, they will contraindicate this situation. And what is the progressive relaxation technique? The patient, like starting from the distal limb, like from hands, the patient will contract the muscles and then release and feel the relaxation. You can try it with yourself. Contract and then release. And then progressive means आहिस्ता से ऊपर की तरफ आए. Now elbow muscles contract, release. Now shoulder muscles contract, release. Neck muscles contract, release. So starting from the distal limbs and the patient, and finally the whole body will be involved in this process where you will intentionally tighten up the body muscles and then let go and relax. So this is a technique which is called progressive relaxation technique. So there are many other interventions. Mainly, there are interventions to improve your posture control and balance. There are interventions to improve your coordination and agility, and there are interventions to improve gait and locomotion. But these are very, very extensive interventions, and we'll be discussing these along with the certain pathologies. We'll be discussing in the upcoming lectures. But there is a long list of impairment. We have discussed the most important one, but the list can be more than that. So what are the points to remember from today's lecture? First of all, that we need to incorporate impairment interventions along with the functional training and the rehab program, and we must judiciously use. And sometimes the protocols are different from the neurological patients as compared to the protocols you might have studied for musculoskeletal patients. So the protocols can differ, and you need to take into consideration that you are dealing a patient with a neurological physical therapy where स्लो एंड स्टडी विंस द रेस वाला हिसाब है कि यहाँ पे थोड़ी प्रोग्रेशन जो है वो स्लो होती है और पेशेंट फटीग का शिकार है. देयर आर कोग्निशन इश्यूज, देयर आर मेनी इश्यूज, और आपको इन सबको ध्यान में रखना है. So thank you so much. I hope you will find this lecture beneficial for you people. And at this point, I would like to say you a goodbye.